page, you find these stories there. Governors NFIU on collision course over cash withdrawal. You can't spend cash, agency tells ensmen of states. There's a quote there. Let me quickly read it out to you. Must they spend security vote in cash? If it is payment they want to make, they can do it through transfer. It doesn't have to be in cash. End of quote. That's talking about the controversy surrounding cash spending by state governors. And NFIU is saying that they cannot spend cash. They must do transfer. I think details you find on the front page of the Nation newspaper of this morning. Of course, it also goes on to the inner pages, especially page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Now, staying with the Nation newspaper, why PDP's NEC, that's NEC, why PDP's NEC, BOT governors can't say Rayu. Page 2 of the Nation newspaper has the story. We're still talking about the leadership crisis rocking the main opposition, People's Democratic Party, PDP. Investors made 1.6 trillion naira gains in first quarter. Consumer goods firms lead. That's on page 15 of the Nation newspaper of this morning. Not leaving the Nation newspaper yet, you find this story here. 25-year-old South African wins BB Titan $100,000. Pope Francis urges all to unite, pray for Nigeria. Pages 2 and 5 of the Nation newspaper have those stories. And okay, Chelsea, Leicester sack coaches. Okay, that's from the Sporting Arena, reported in the Nation newspaper there. Buhari, Tinubu hail Anthony Joshua. Of course, it's also from the Sporting Arena, talking about the boxing champion, Nigerian born boxing champion. Let's move ahead and see some more stories here. China loans to Africa transparent. Check details there in the Nation newspaper. See how transparent it really is. Trump flies to New York for arraignment. Okay, the trial of Donald Trump. That sounds like the title of a novel. The trial of Donald Trump. Check details of that in the Nation newspaper of this morning. How proceeds from petrol subsidy removal should be used. That's coming from the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria, MN, LCCI. It's also said the same thing, listing options for the federal government. The details you find on the front page of the Nation newspaper. And still taking stories there. Federal government borrowed 3.17 trillion in 3 months. Okay. Check the debt profile of the federal government there. It's reported on the front page of the Nation newspaper. I beg your pardon, of this morning. Let's move to some other newspapers of today. The Daily Sun newspaper is our next check. And on the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper, you have some stories here. Governors, EFCC, CBN to meet over security votes. Okay, talking about modalities for spending security votes. Well, whatever it is, I think Barkindo, the director of media of the Nigeria Governors Forum, was saying in a statement that the meeting would be held virtually. That's according to the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, Sakato State Governor Tamboa, and then that all concerned will be able to attend, and then they will be able to discuss all the gray areas of the issue. Well, the interesting part of it is that, yes, they also said they would discuss the issue of the cashless policy in such a way that it will also be all-inclusive and convenient for Nigerians. Let's see how their meeting goes. I think the meeting has been scheduled for tomorrow, Tuesday, the 4th day of April 2023. Ohaneze, NBF, AYCF won on interim government. SAC claims suspicious, urge security agencies to be open on matter. Of course, there's need for openness, sincerity of purpose in dealing with such matters. Check details of the story on page 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Senate President, APC group says Kanu most qualified. Opposition against zoning speakership to Northwest grows. Pages 26 and 27 of the Daily Sun newspaper have the stories. Well, of course, it's opening up there. Let's check some other stories as they open up on the pages of the newspaper this morning. FCTA repatriates 217 destitute beggars to Katsina, Kano, Abia, Imo, Delta, others. That's what you find on page 28 of the Daily Sun newspaper of this morning. Of course, there is chance and a space for you there to check the story on the pages of the newspaper there. And some more stories there. Udi Eziagu leaders, French celebrate Uguay for peace, security, unity, progress. Page 29 of the Daily Sun newspaper has a story. And Buhari hails Anthony Joshua's victory over Jermaine Franklin. Of course, we took the story earlier, and that's a version of the Daily Sun newspaper as reported on page 30 of the newspaper. How to win war against corruption. That's according to Policy Group. Well, this is something that's been on for a long time. How to win war against corruption. Corruption is fighting back, and so forth you hear. But let's see if the recommendation of Policy Group will be anything to go by. Check page 26 of the Daily Sun newspaper for details there. And efforts to discredit Obi will fail woefully. Campaign organization tells APC dismisses Oyedepo Obi fake audio conversation. Dismisses Oyedepo Obi fake audio conversation as product of APC's forgeries. I was talking about what many have tagged the leaked audio conversation between the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi and Bishop David Oyedepo. The details of this story you'll find on page 27 of the Daily Sun newspaper. IPOP flays killing of members in Abia. Page 28 of the Daily Sun newspaper has a story. Of course, if you check the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper, you also see very beautiful pictures of the processions of Christian faithful yesterday as they celebrated the Palm Sunday. Of course, it was a very flowery, colorful celebration in many places. In Akure, the Ondo State capital, also it was the same story. Pope Francis led the mass at St. Peter's Square. That's just one day after the issue of treatment of bronchitis, and there were fears that he might not be able to attend and all of that. But let me welcome Flora in the spirit of Easter. Welcome on the program, Flora. It's nice to see you. I was expecting that to be palm fronts that would be on the sleeves of your clothes today.
Well, I don't know, Sunday. I think.
You're bereft of words enough to express.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. It's good to be here again.
Of course, in the prayer of Easter, Flora is overwhelmed with joy. It's good to see you again, I must say.
What's with you and Easter? You just cannot wait.
Of course, we are already in the week.
You're already tired of fasting.
Well, that's if I was fasting in the first place. Of course, the joy of celebration is also.
Of course, that's true.
Of course, we've been able to take stories from the Nation newspaper and the Daily Sun newspaper. Let me hand you over to Flora now.
All right, let's take a look at what we have on the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Governors meet with EFCC, ICPC, FIRS, CBN on security votes. Meeting at instance of the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, NFIU. Misconceptions about security votes will be cleared. That's coming from Autumn. Osun, Benue Governors welcome meeting. 10th National Assembly leadership, Power Blocks strategizes, awaits Tinubu's return. That story is on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. Alkali resigns as NNPP national chairman. It is on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper.
Well, I think the issue of the resignation of Alkali seems to be instructive to a large extent when you also read the letter he sent to the secretary, the national secretary of the party, saying that he felt like giving room for fresh hands to be able to take over the leadership of the party and contribute to his contributions as and build on his contributions to the development of the party. But what is more, there must also be a holistic view of the issues that led to
the resignation.
Of course, if you also look at what's been the trajectory of events before, during, and after the general election, he was also sincere enough to say, yes, there were issues before, during, and after the elections. But to a large extent, I think it's also fine that someone is saying, well, if the heat is getting too much, let me resign. I think that also is when you juxtapose that with what's happening in the main opposition part of the PDP. Well, that's fight the leadership crisis there. Someone is voluntarily leaving. Someone is trying to hold on and say, "Look, I don't want to."
I think that's what we always have in this part of the world. We always want to hold on to power, but again,
sits down tight.
Yes, but I think his behavior speaks volume. You look at it. This is actually how leadership should be. When you think you've not done well, or when you think this is my time to rest, let someone, you always do it, and then we move on. That's how progressive unity or progressive whatever, that's the trajectory of how it should be. You will now find out that whoever takes over will know at the end of the day that this is how it should be. If you think you're not doing well, you step aside, let someone else.
Leadership, service should be the hallmark of leadership.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's just be selfish and self-serving engagement.
Alright, moving on, we still have bandits kill 12, abduct 26 in Niger and Katsina. Lagos, Akwa Ibom, Rivers, others eye $10 billion power sector investment. That's an investigation there. Why I did not join the military. Adeboye, I think if you want to get details of that story, look at page 36 of the Vanguard newspaper. Leaked audio. I never campaigned for any politician. That's coming from Bishop Oyedepo. Buhari commends AJ Anthony Joshua for his courage and discipline. We have this: APC's propaganda cannot stop pursuit of our mandates. That's coming from Mr. Peter Obi. Foreign portfolio investments dropped 49% in 2 months of 2023. You get the details of that on page 20 of the Vanguard newspaper. And on the entertainment scene, South Africa's Kosi emerges winner of BB Titans, gets $100,000. Sunday, that's huge.
Well, I think we should move on.
Okay.
If you keep looking at the figure, you might just get somehow on the way. Let's check the Daily Times newspaper of this morning and see stories. The headlines are there. You find this one: 36 state governors to meet CBN EFCC over security vote. That's the version of the Daily Times newspaper of this morning. LP to APC, endless subterfuge must stop. Alright. And FG to demolish Bishop Oyedepo's hangar at Lagos Airport. Okay. Details in the Daily Times newspaper of today. The Daily Times newspaper today has a story. FG commences entrepreneurship program for public works. Of course, you also find that there. Nigeria's FDI declining steadily over the last 5 years. That's according to experts. That's reported on page 18 of the Daily Times newspaper of this morning. APM asked tribunal to nullify Tinubu's victory for flawed nomination of Shetima. That's also reported in the Daily Times newspaper of this morning. Check details there, and then many other stories you'll find there.
Alright, away from the Daily Times, we move to the Guardian newspaper. Obi's leaked phone call with Oyedepo raises dust. Leaked audio on Obi Oyedepo deepfake, says LP campaign. Okonkwo audio taken out of context. Obi's spokesman blames NCC for leaked call. I have never campaigned for any politician, says Oyedepo. Nnamani Obi introduced religious ethnic politics. You get the detail of those stories from the Vanguard newspaper. They tagged it the religious war. 28 women die daily of cervical cancer in Nigeria. Investors gain 2.54 trillion naira in Q1 as market damps political crisis. How underfunding abused master plans in universities and polytechnics. Pope celebrates Palm Sunday Mass after hospital stay, defends the abandoned. Kosi wins BB Titans. You get the detail of those stories from the Guardian newspaper rather.
Okay, on this day, let's check what this day newspaper has for us. On the front page of this day newspaper, you find this story. Tinubu begins team building, considers Bedabiamila chief of staff. All right, that's what you find there. Well, I think the calibration is going to also cause a major upset, as it were, in the political arena. If Bedabiamila, I think, also got re-elected, and now will not become the chief of staff to the president when Tinubu is sworn in as president, then he told me INEC has to go again and then conduct
a by-election.
Nigerian democracy, Nigerian politics. But that's a story you find on the front page of this day newspaper. Of course, some riders to the story. Wale Edo Bagudu also in high consideration for key roles. There. Shoyinka advises President-elect to either restructure Nigeria or fail. Then that's that's a true definition of hitting the nail on the head. You see, if another person wants to recast this headline, you hear restructure Nigeria or fail. Shoyinka advises President-elect. Now that's so punchy. You ask me, restructure Nigeria or fail? I think the way to go would be not to fail. Exactly. And so would be to take the first part of the advice to restructure Nigeria. But the question remains, on what platform? Via what indices are we really talking about the restructuring? There must be a way to conceptualize and operationalize the word restructure. We must really know what we're restructuring. And in any case, you don't build something or nothing. Many commentators have also said that it's nothing you're restructuring as long as it's still standing on the flawed constitution. No matter how flawed it is the constitution of Nigeria, but there are issues with the constitution.
You know, I would have thought that after all that long months of constitution review, that we would have gotten, because I just remember that we've had the constitution review.
Is it all the constitutional conference and all of those other things that was the national confab and so on and so forth? For me, I just feel we need the legislation to also regulate the way and manner governments just earmark, not only earmark, spend money on engagements that are not just fail but not working.
They don't yield any results.
Productive engagement. You see, many Nigerians, eminent in their own rights, gathered, and then over 600 recommendations were made. And today, those things are just in the history, in the dustbin of history. And the Air Refining Committee also came and did a similar thing. And what did they come up with? Nothing has also come out of the engagement. And then you also be talking about similar engagements and all of those other things. Now we're talking about restructuring Nigeria on what plane? I think it's important to also take a deeper look at that if Nigeria will really move forward. Taking more riders to that story, you find this one. Shoyinka insists nation won't cease demanding change. All right, that's what you find on the front page of this day newspaper. Falano says president can't withhold assent to constitution alteration bills. No, president must sign. Justice Okeke ruled in 2010. That's what you find in this day newspaper this morning. Wiki's police arrested APC lawyers filing petitions in Rivers. That's an allegation by Cole. All right. Still more stories here. New breakthrough New breakthrough drug dostelima emerges for cancer treatment. All right. You find out there. And the picture you find on the front page has to do with the courtesy visit to the Olu of Warri by the governor-elect of Delta State, then the PDP gubernatorial candidate for Jigawa State, Mustafa Lamido. You find that picture on the front page, that courtesy visit that was held yesterday. And you also find a story, Reuters survey at about 1.6 mpd. Nigeria's oil production was OPEC's biggest increase in March. But I think impact is what Nigerians really want to see, not 1.6 million barrel per day is huge, we want to say, but what's the impact of that on the nation's economy? Expert urges next government to in place independent powerful regulator for oil gas industry. Good recommendation, you say. Then the experts are also saying regulator in mood of CBN and NCC needed to strengthen oil sector activities for increased foreign exchange earnings. Of course, you find details of those stories and many more in this day newspaper of today. We've also taken stories from the sporting arena talking about Anthony Joshua, Buhari Abiodun Dabirewa hail Anthony Joshua's defeat of Franklin. Of course, details of this and many more there you find.
Moving on to Nigerian News Direct. Tension as federal government concludes 6.7 trillion naira fuel subsidy removal. That story is on page 23.
Is there really a tension?
People are not even talking about it anymore, because I think what Nigeria is actually waiting for now is, let's see what happens.
You see, there is no government that succeeds without effective communication with its people. And that is one thing that I feel this government at the national level has failed to recognize and realize. Effective communication goes beyond issuing press releases. All this time to time, the president is speaking through, Garba Shehu is speaking through, Femi Adesina at every point in time. Of course, just like one man, Femi Emmanuel, I think, if I still get it very well, was saying, there must be, Olumide Emmanuel, there must be that deliberate communication. The president must really hold it. Look, while growing up, I remember very well, just immediately Nigeria returned to democracy in 1999. I remember very well governors holding monthly interaction with the people. But what do you find these days? People are no longer asking questions. And so you find the governors also just bringing up such an engagement when they feel they need the people. It is when you find elections are approaching that you find governors coming to say, meet your governor, Mr. Governor speaks, Mr. Governor tells the people, and whatever name they're calling it. So there must be effective communication with the people. That's much more important. And when the people are also docile, and then there's no effective engagement of government.
I think the main part is that people being docile. These days, nobody is talking anymore. People have taken over social media. People have to talk about making skits, make fun, whatever it is happening in the country, we turn it to a joke. So in the course of turning it to a joke and making fun, nobody sees the message. Nobody wants to pass the real message anymore. Even the activists are no longer activisting anything. Everybody just sits in the just come on social media, condemn. Yeah, so you just wonder. It appears okay, whatever comes, and we will just take it and move on. That's how the whole thing has appeared. Then government on their end. The truth is, honestly, if you call your people, if you really value your people and how they view you, before you do anything, you think about them. You think of what to do, how will they feel. But these days, everybody goes about doing whatever. Don't worry, they will be fine. Just put it out there. They will make noise for 2 days. Then everybody goes back to normal. So
effective communication is important. The government and the governed must know the importance of that and really get to engage and get democracy going. I think that's very, very important. All right, before we leave this part of the program this morning,
I still have one more story on the News Direct. Here they said APC begins investigation of Aregbesola Amosun, others for anti-party activities. All that you find in detail in the Nigerian News Direct.
That must be a very big issue in the APC, especially when you find lots of is it what this guy called Higgy Haga, political Higgy Haga, in the ruling party, as far as Osun politics especially is concerned. The coming days will tell what exactly will be the fate of that engagement. Let's see how it goes. Of course, we're going to take so many of the stories. Check out those newspapers and then you find the stories there. Study links higher magnesium intake to lower dementia risk. Page 27 of New Telegraph newspaper has that study. Of course, if you don't take that study aside, we sue us. He's the commissioner in charge of study. Alright everyone, we will be going on our first break on the program this morning. When we return, we'll be taking a closer look at issues relating to nation building, national development, and of course the responsibility of the citizenry. Please do stay with us everyone.